A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. Early in the morning on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb. She saw that the stone had been moved away. She ran off to Simon Peter and the other disciples, the one Jesus loved, and told them, "The Lord has been taken from the tomb. We don't know where they have put him." At that, Peter and the other disciples started out on their way toward the tomb. They were running side by side, but then the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He did not enter, but bent down to peer in and saw the wrappings lying on the ground. Presently, Simon Peter came along behind him and entered the tomb. He observed the wrappings on the ground and saw the piece of cloth which had covered the head not lying with the wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the disciple who had arrived first at the tomb went in. He saw and believed. Remember, as yet they did not understand the scriptures that Jesus had to rise from the dead. With this, the disciples went back home. Meanwhile, Mary stood weeping beside the tomb. Even as she wept, she stooped to peer inside, and there she saw two angels in dazzling robes. One was seated at the head and the other at the foot of the place where Jesus' body had lain. "Woman," they asked her, "why are you weeping?" She answered them, "Because the Lord has been taken away, and I do not know where they have put him." She had no sooner said this than she turned around and caught sight of Jesus standing there, but she did not know him. "Woman," he asked her, "why are you weeping? Who is it you are looking for?" She supposed he was the gardener, and so she said, "Sir, if you are the one who carried him off, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned to him and said in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus then said, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Rather, go to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples. "I have seen the Lord," she announced. Then she reported what he had said to her. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have seen the series, The Chosen. Have most all of you seen that? So some of you haven't all. But the first step, it's a series like three seasons that they've produced around the life of Jesus. And it starts out set here in this area of the Sea of Galilee, which you can see right behind me. And so you're not too distracted. The inspiration for this altar is, as we know from the scriptures, Jesus preached from the boat. When there were too many people, he pushed off into the Sea of Galilee and preached from Peter's boat. Thus, this altar here is designed so that you see the boat and the water and the priest preaching from the boat, right? So that's why I'm here in the boat. Luckily, it's a little more stable, so I don't fall in. But anyhow, that series begins with Mary Magdalene. One of the very first scenes is her as a little girl with her father, if you'll remember, and she's playing with a little doll. And they go outside in the night sky and they're looking up at the stars and they're talking, and the father quotes to her from Isaiah, right? That passage of Isaiah that I sought you, and the one who loves you is seeking you and will find you, etc. And then it cuts to later on in that first, she is the woman with 7 demons in her. And you'll remember Nicodemus has been called up from Jerusalem to come investigate this woman that's causing issues in the Jewish quarter. And because she's possessed and actually injures some people. And so they're coming to investigate and cast out the demons that she has, right? And in that scene, after she comes to in one of her moments of delirium or possession, she's kind of very empty and broken, and you even see that little doll. That's how you know it's Mary Magdalene as an adult now. A little doll sitting there on the side, and the passage that her father read to her from Isaiah is rolled up inside the doll, you recall, and she goes to a local bar where one of her friends is, and they're talking, and she's expressing her despair, and actually gives him the doll in kind of a rejection to her roots and her faith and where she's ended up in life, etc. And that whole first show in the series is setting the stage of where Jesus comes into, right? It does the little vignette on Mary Magdalene, a broken woman who hasn't found salvation in her own religion, and what is prophesied doesn't seem to be happening in her life. It cuts away also to Nicodemus, a priest of that religion who's trying to show power over the devil, and he's failing, and so that's got him a little perturbed. Then you have Peter and his brothers who are fishing at night, breaking the Sabbath a little bit, but it's a time when the Jewish officials aren't keeping an eye on taxing the fishermen, so it's a good window for them to kind of break the rules a little bit and fish there just on the eve of the Sabbath. Remember, the more religious brother Andrew is like, I don't think we should be doing this, and Peter's like, no, the rabbis are okay with this because, we can make a little bit of money, at least we'll make up the taxes that these thieves are taking from us, we all break even. So they're kind of setting the stage, right? The reason I start there in our pilgrimage is, in a sense, that can be a great setting for ourselves, right? Each of us comes with the need, like Mary Magdalene, or maybe like Nicodemus, or like Peter, James, who have not yet met Jesus. All of us come with our need for conversion, right? All of us, as Mary, have the demons of our life, the challenges of our life. Maybe we're very religious like Nicodemus, but not quite sure what's going on and how Jesus is going to bring about salvation in a situation of the world. Perhaps we have, like Mary Magdalene, our own demons we're trying to overcome, or like Mary Magdalene, the rebellious member of the family who's left the religion and is out there far off, and we've got people we want to pray for on this trip. We could also be like Peter, a little bit engaged in our religion, but also very consumed by so many other things of our life. But nonetheless, we're here on this pilgrimage, I think, called by Jesus, and in a certain way, Jesus also wants to come into our life on this trip, invite us to a deeper conversion, to go deeper with him. And so we're here to encounter Jesus, right? That's what this whole site is dedicated to, right? That's the inspiration of the idea of Father Juan and those who have built up this retreat center here in Magdala, is to help people encounter Jesus, just like Mary Magdalene did, just like all the people of this coast did when Jesus decided to start his public ministry. He started it here. This is where it began. It's where Christianity began. The first chapters, when no one knew who he was, and he started preaching. They gathered around him here. What I love about this, and try not to go on too long, but what I love about these places, different than other places where I've been, like many of you know, I was in Rome for many years, and you're explaining historical sites. And oftentimes you're kind of saying, was it here or not here? Well, more or less here. You're not quite sure. Layers of history, and different churches are built on top of different churches. One thing I like about the Sea of Galilee is this is the sea. The sea hasn't moved, right? Well, maybe the shorelines have gone, in or out 15, 20 yards over 2,000 years. But you're not questioning, did it happen here? No, it happened here. St. Peter's bones, luckily we know the Vatican's over his bones, so we got that pretty close. But others, geographically could be a little farther. But here, it's here. So when Jesus walked the shores of the Sea of Galilee, he walked these shores. He walked here. And so the conversion that he invites us happened and will happen here. One other thing Mary Magdalene shows us is perseverance. Thing we know from her, not only her conversion, because we know she was the one with the 7 demons in Mark 16, but we also know she is the woman who Jesus revealed the resurrection, but also who persevered to the foot of the cross. She was a follower, announced, present at the foot of the cross. And so she persevered in her love for Jesus. And then she, as today's reading gospel tells us, she persevered and then went to the tomb and encountered Jesus, the resurrected one. So not only did she have her conversion with Jesus, she persevered with Jesus, and then she encountered the joy of the resurrected Jesus. So I hope that's the grace that you'll all receive on this trip, right? To encounter Jesus for depth of conversion, and also the joy of your faith will grow. I'll close with just a little bit of homework. Maybe you've already done this homework, but if you haven't, I'll invite you to reflect on it today and tomorrow. It's just, what is it that you desire from Jesus on this trip, right, on this pilgrimage? What is it that you come with in your heart? Like Mary Magdalene or Peter and James and John or Nicodemus or any of the personalities who encountered Jesus all had things going on in their hearts that Jesus spoke to. What is it going on in your heart that you desire? Whether it's a demon to get rid of, whether it's a grace of perseverance, whether it's more joy in the resurrection, maybe it's a family member. Whatever is that desire, bring it to the Lord.